In the ancient city of Ur, we find Abraham, the patriarch of the monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. We were told that Abraham was chosen by God and that through him a great nation would be established. However, I must tell you, the story you have been told is a lie. The truth has been hidden from us, and I understand why. And just as I know, by the end of this video, you will too. For centuries, humanity has believed in the stories of its origins as they were written in religious texts and passed down through generations. But what if I told you that the key to unraveling the greatest mysteries of our existence had been buried beneath the sands of time, hidden in ancient tablets forgotten for thousands of years? You've been told that the Bible is the Word of God, the ultimate and sacred truth passed down to humankind. You've been told that its stories of creation, of the flood, and of divine beings are unique, divine revelations. But what if I told you that these very stories are much older than the Bible itself? What if they were written long before the Bible ever existed, not in Hebrew or Greek, but in the strange, wedge-shaped symbols of the Sumerians? In the 19th century, a discovery shocked society to its core. In 1849, during an excavation in what is now modern-day Iraq, the ruins of an ancient city were unearthed. This city, Nineveh, once served as the great capital of the Assyrian Empire. But buried deep within its ruins, archaeologists discovered something far more valuable: the Library of Nineveh, a massive collection of over 30,000 cuneiform tablets. What they found inscribed on these tablets would forever change how we view human history. Among the records were creation myths, stories of gods descending from the heavens, and even accounts of a great flood. These stories were uncannily similar to those found in the Bible, but they were written thousands of years earlier, long before the Bible's authors walked the earth. How could this be? How could ancient Sumerians, the first known civilization in history, write about events that seem to echo the sacred texts of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam? To uncover this mystery, we must turn to one of the most significant figures in all three monotheistic religions: Abraham, the patriarch of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. What most people don't realize is that Abraham wasn't born in the lands of Israel or Canaan. He was born in the ancient Sumerian city of Ur, a bustling metropolis of Mesopotamia and one of the earliest centers of advanced civilization. At the heart of Ur stood a massive ziggurat, a towering temple dedicated to its patron god, Nannar, also known as Sin, the moon god. According to Sumerian texts, Nannar was not merely a distant, ethereal deity, but one of the Anunnaki, beings who descended from the heavens to live and rule among humans. Nannar was said to govern Ur from the top of the ziggurat, a place where the boundary between gods and mortals seemed to vanish. This structure symbolized the connection between the heavens and the earth, a direct link to the divine beings who, according to ancient accounts, guided humanity's development. And speaking of connections, accessing the truth about our past requires unrestricted exploration. But often, geo-restrictions and privacy concerns limit what we can discover. That's where private internet access, PIA, comes in, a VPN designed to protect your online activity and unlock a world of possibilities. PIA works by encrypting your connection and hiding your IP address, keeping your data safe from hackers, internet providers, and even prying eyes on public Wi-Fi. Hackers on the same network can easily steal sensitive data like passwords, photos, or personal files. PIA creates a secure, encrypted tunnel for your data, shielding it from these threats. It's like putting on an invisibility cloak, shielding your digital life while you explore freely. And it doesn't stop there. With servers in 91 countries, PIA lets you bypass geo-restrictions to access region-locked content. Want to watch a documentary only available on UK Netflix, or stream global sports events with regional blackouts? PIA makes it possible. You can even use it to access better deals on subscriptions or flights by switching your location. Plus, one subscription covers unlimited devices, your phone, laptop, tablet, and more. PIA is one of the world's most transparent VPNs, trusted by over 30 million users, and backed by a no-logs policy that's been proven multiple times in court. It even supports P2P file sharing for those looking to transfer data securely. Right now, you can get 83% off, just $2.03 a month, plus 4 extra months free. It's completely risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Click the link in the description, piavpn.com/Anunnaki, and take the first step towards secure and limitless discovery. Abraham grew up in a world where the Anunnaki gods were revered, their stories shaping the beliefs of the people. The culture of Ur, with its advanced knowledge of astronomy, architecture, and spirituality, was intertwined with the worship of these gods. It is no coincidence that Abraham, later celebrated as the father of monotheism, came from a city steeped in the traditions of divine rulers. Could it be that Abraham's concept of one God was not a sudden revelation, but a reinterpretation of the experiences and teachings from his homeland? When Abraham left Ur for Canaan, he carried with him not just his belongings, but also the stories and traditions of his people. Stories of gods like Nannar, Enlil, and Enki, who played pivotal roles in Mesopotamian mythology. However, as Abraham's journey unfolded, something profound happened. The tales of many gods were reshaped into the idea of a single, all-powerful creator. This shift, which would lay the foundation for monotheistic religions, raises an intriguing question. Could Abraham's encounter with God have been a meeting with one of the Anunnaki, a powerful being who revealed itself as a supreme entity? The implications are staggering. The monotheistic traditions that shape our modern world may have their roots not in divine revelation, but in the ancient worship of the Anunnaki gods. The biblical account of Abraham offers only fragments of the truth, leaving out the deep connections to the civilization of Ur and the gods who ruled from its ziggurat. And this is where the evidence from the Mesopotamian tablets becomes critical. These ancient records not only validate parts of the biblical story, but also challenge its exclusivity. They reveal that the tales of creation, divine intervention, and global floods existed long before the Bible and were deeply influenced by the narratives of Sumer. The story of Abraham, as told in Genesis, is part of this much older and richer tradition, a tradition that begins not in the lands of Israel, but in the ancient cities ruled by the Anunnaki. What we are exploring today is more than a re-examination of religious history. It is the unraveling of a deeper truth about humanity's connection to its creators. The Anunnaki, who descended to Earth in ancient times, left their mark not only on the tablets of Nineveh, but on the very foundations of human civilization. This video is part of a broader journey to uncover these hidden connections and reveal the forgotten truths of our past. If this topic interests you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss the upcoming videos. Together, we will continue to piece together the lost history of humanity, a history written not by men alone, but by those who came from the stars. The story of Abraham is deeply intertwined with the legacy of Sumer, the birthplace of civilization, and its connection to the Anunnaki gods. While the Bible portrays Abraham as a figure chosen by a singular deity to lead a nation, the evidence from ancient Mesopotamian texts suggests a far more intricate narrative. To understand Abraham's place in this story, we must examine Genesis 14, which recounts a pivotal war between 4 eastern kings and 5 Canaanite rulers. this conflict is far more than a biblical anecdote. It reflects the geopolitical and spiritual tensions of ancient Mesopotamia, the very land where Abraham was born. Among the eastern kings mentioned are Kedorlaomer, Tidhal, and Eri-Aku, whose names were once dismissed as myth. However, their identities were later confirmed through Babylonian cuneiform tablets. These texts identify Kedorlaomer as Kudur-Lagamar, an Elamite king serving the deity Lagamar, Eri-Aku as a ruler connected to the Sumerian god Aku, and Tidhal as an allied leader commanding nomadic forces. These tablets reveal that this conflict wasn't merely a clash of armies. It was part of a larger cosmic and territorial struggle influenced by the ambitions of the Anunnaki gods. The alliances and betrayals of the time reflected not just human rivalries, but divine agendas, with the gods vying for control through their chosen kings. Abraham's connection to this world places him within a broader story of divine manipulation and human destiny. Abraham's birthplace, Ur, was a thriving Sumerian metropolis dominated by its ziggurat, a temple dedicated to Nannar, the moon god. As one of the Anunnaki, Nannar was believed to rule the city directly, blurring the line between divine and mortal realms. The advanced culture of Ur, its knowledge of astronomy, architecture, and spirituality, was deeply tied to the worship of these gods. It was within this environment, shaped by both human innovation and divine influence, that Abraham was born. When Abraham left Ur, he did not leave behind the stories of his people or the traditions of the gods they worshipped. Instead, he carried these narratives with him, embedding them into the cultural and spiritual framework of the lands he traveled to. Over time, however, something transformative occurred. The many gods worshipped in Sumer were reinterpreted, condensed into the concept of a single, supreme being. This transition, often attributed to divine revelation, may instead have been a reinterpretation of the encounters Abraham and his people had with the Anunnaki. The transition from polytheism to monotheism was not instantaneous. It was shaped by centuries of human interaction with the Anunnaki, whose presence was recorded on countless clay tablets. These texts describe how the gods descended from the heavens, governed humanity, and even fought among themselves. As the influence of the Anunnaki began to wane, the stories of their power and guidance were reimagined into a singular narrative, one that eventually gave rise to monotheistic belief systems. The collapse of Ur and the rise of Elamite power marked a period of upheaval during which Abraham's journey unfolded. The decline of Sumer and its gods signified the end of an era, but it also marked the beginning of a new chapter in human spirituality. Abraham, far from being an isolated figure, was a bridge between these two worlds, the fading dominance of the Anunnaki and the emergence of a new religious paradigm. The Bible simplifies this story, portraying Abraham as a man chosen by one God. Yet the evidence from Mesopotamian texts provides a richer, more complex context. Abraham's life and journey reflect humanity's transition from living under the direct rule of the Anunnaki to forging its own spiritual path, a path that redefined the divine and laid the foundations for the world's great monotheistic religions. And today, everything is intertwined and grounded in what Abraham received from the Anunnaki. From the very beginnings and origins of religions and the reverence for the gods to the profound and hidden knowledge. From the most beautiful and sacred to wars and conflicts. Everything we are as humanity, it seems, traces back to Abraham and his descendants. And everything stemming from this leads us to the Anunnaki. And this is why the Bible is an important historical book, but from my point of view, a theological manipulation. Despite everything you've been told, the true origins of Abraham, the patriarch of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, are far older than the Bible itself. While the Bible is our primary source of information about him, it leaves out critical details that only the ancient Mesopotamian records can illuminate. What the Bible does tell us is that Abraham, originally called Abram, was born in Ur of the Chaldees. Abram's father, Terah, belonged to an elite lineage rooted in Sumerian society. As the Bible recounts, Terah took his family, Abram, his wife Sarai, later known as Sarah, and his grandson Lot, and left Ur, eventually settling in Haran. But what the Bible fails to explain is why they left, or the monumental events that unfolded around this time. To uncover the truth, we must delve into the history of Sumer and the Anunnaki's role in shaping the fate of humanity. The city of Haran, where Abram's family paused their journey, was not a random destination. It was a city modeled after Ur, a northern outpost that continued the worship of Nannar, extending his domain into the far reaches of Mesopotamia. Haran served as a mirror to Ur, both in its religious devotion and its architectural layout, centered on the ziggurat. This suggests that Terah's family did not simply abandon their culture or beliefs when they left Ur. They carried with them their connection to the Anunnaki and the gods of Sumer. So why did they leave? The answer lies in the chaos that consumed Ur during the late 21st century BCE. When Abram was a young man, the city of Ur thrived under the rule of Ur-Nammu, a king who claimed divine favor from Nannar himself. Ur-Nammu's reign marked a golden age for the city, but it came to an abrupt and mysterious end when he was killed in 2096 BCE. His sudden death shook the faith of the people, as the divine protection promised by Nannar seemed to fail. Doubt spread, and the stability of the Sumerian city-states began to unravel. Could this catastrophic event have been the catalyst for Terah and his family's departure? The Bible tells us that Abram eventually left Haran at the age of 75, answering the call of Yahweh to journey to Canaan. But consider this: Yahweh's command came at a time when Sumer itself was in turmoil. By 2048 BCE, just as Abram left Haran, the mighty Sumerian Empire was crumbling under the weight of betrayal and sacrilege. Shulgi, the successor of Ur-Nammu, had turned against the gods, desecrating their temples and declaring himself divine. His blasphemy led to his downfall, an event that rippled across the land, forcing many to flee. Could it be that the Lord who spoke to Abram was, in fact, one of the Anunnaki, possibly Nannar, Enlil, or another being, guiding Abram away from a collapsing Sumerian world to preserve their influence elsewhere? The Bible, as we know it, portrays Abram's departure as the beginning of a monotheistic faith. Yet the evidence suggests something far more complex. Abram was not just a random man chosen by divine intervention. He was a figure deeply tied to the elite of Sumerian society, with access to the knowledge and traditions of the Anunnaki. His transformation from Abram to Abraham, marked by a covenant, symbolized not only a shift in name, but also a profound rebranding of Sumerian beliefs into the foundation of a new religious movement. What makes this even more compelling is the timeline. Abram's life was intricately connected to the rise and fall of Sumer's greatest rulers. Born around 2123 BCE, Abram would have been a witness to the reign of Ur-Nammu and the chaos that followed his death. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. The concept of Yahweh, the God who commanded Abram to leave his home, bears striking similarities to the Anunnaki gods of Mesopotamia. Yahweh, like the Anunnaki, is described as a being who speaks directly to humans, issues commands, and intervenes in the affairs of mortals. Could it be that the God of the Bible is not so different from the gods of Sumer? Could Yahweh be yet another reinterpretation of an ancient Anunnaki being, rebranded through the lens of monotheism? For me, this connection is very clear. This connection is more than speculation. It's supported by the overlap between Sumerian and biblical accounts. What do you think about it? I want to know your thoughts, so let's debate in the video comments. The covenant with Abraham, for example, mirrors the agreements made between the Anunnaki and the kings of Sumer, binding them to divine protection in exchange for loyalty and obedience. Even the act of circumcision, introduced as part of Abraham's covenant, echoes ancient Sumerian rituals that symbolized devotion and separation from the ordinary. What we see here is not the birth of monotheism out of nothing, but the repackaging of ancient Sumerian beliefs, rooted in the worship of the Anunnaki. Abraham was not an outsider to this world. He was a product of it. But there's something else, a hidden link embedded in Abraham's identity that takes us back to Nippur, one of the most sacred cities in all of Sumer. Some researchers states that the origin of the term Hebrew, or Ibri, has its origins far older than the biblical narrative. For them, the word Ibri stems from a Sumerian root meaning to cross or native of the crossing. This crossing wasn't a random reference. It pointed to Nippur, Nibru in Sumerian and Nibiru in Akkadian, the ancient city that served as the primary spiritual and administrative hub of the Anunnaki on Earth. According to ancient astronauts theorists, Nippur was their mission control center, a place where the divine and the mortal intersected, and where the ancient celestial grids of pre-diluvial times were said to converge. While the Bible ties his roots to Ur, it also commands him to leave his father's house in Haran without explicitly naming his birthplace. If Ibri indeed refers to someone from Nippur, then Abraham's ancestral connection to this sacred city makes perfect sense. It positions him not just as a simple man of faith, but as someone who descended from a priestly and royal lineage intimately tied to the Anunnaki's activities on Earth. But Nippur wasn't a royal capital like Ur. It was something far more profound. It was the spiritual heart of Sumer, the seat of Enlil, leader of the Anunnaki, and the birthplace of astronomical knowledge, including the Nippurian calendar. This calendar still resonates in the Jewish tradition, with its timeline beginning in 3760 BCE, a date eerily aligned with the introduction of the Nippurian calendar itself. The ancestry of Abraham, then, was not random. His lineage traced back to the priest kings of Nippur, a line of rulers who combined spiritual authority with earthly governance. The name of Abraham's father, Terah, further underscores this connection. Interpreted through Sumerian etymology, Terah is believed to mean oracle priest, a role reserved for the intermediary between humanity and the divine. This priestly function, mirrored later in the role of the Israelite high priest, involved direct communication with the gods, or, more accurately, the Anunnaki. The title oracle priest was no mere honorific. It symbolized a bloodline destined to serve the divine plan of the Anunnaki, carrying their influence forward. Even the rulers of Ur held titles that connected them to Nippur, such as pious shepherd of Nippur, reinforcing the city's central role in Sumerian and Anunnaki society. Votive inscriptions and archaeological findings from Nippur show that Sumerian kings frequently took on priestly duties, blending their royal and spiritual authority. This tradition extended to the family of Terah, whose priestly and royal background would have placed them at the top of Haran's social hierarchy when they migrated there. But why did the family move? Historical records suggest that during the reign of Ur-Nammu, founder of Ur's third dynasty, Nannar and the monarchy of Ur extended their control over Nippur. This was a time of consolidation where spiritual and secular roles merged. It's entirely plausible that Terah and his family were relocated to Ur as part of this integration, bridging Nippur's religious authority with the royal court in Ur. When Ur-Nammu met his mysterious demise in 2096 BCE, plunging the city into chaos, Terah's family left, seeking refuge in Haran, a city that mirrored the religious and cultural practices of Ur. Haran, located on the northern edges of Mesopotamia, was not just a safe haven, but a continuation of their Sumerian identity. Dedicated to Nannar, the moon god of the Anunnaki, and, according to some interpretations, one of Enlil's sons, Haran preserved its ziggurat temple and spiritual connection to the divine. It was in this setting that Abraham grew up, inheriting the knowledge, traditions, and skills passed down by his ancestors. The Bible's portrayal of Abraham as a wise and skilled leader aligns with these roots. His knowledge of astronomy, for example, was essential for navigating long journeys, a skill deeply connected to the astronomical expertise of the Sumerians. This connection to the stars, central to the Anunnaki's influence, was not coincidental. It was a continuation of the Nippurian traditions, where the heavens were meticulously charted and understood. As the family remained in Haran, a pivotal moment came when Abraham, now 75, received the divine directive to journey to Canaan. The timing of this command is critical. It coincides with the fall of Shulgi, whose reign had been marked by sacrilege and betrayal of the Anunnaki's order. Shulgi's death in 2048 BCE set off a chain of events, destabilizing the region and reshuffling the power dynamics among the Anunnaki. Abraham's departure from Haran to Canaan was not just a spiritual calling, it was a strategic move, guided by the divine influence of the Anunnaki. His role as a leader, diplomat, and military strategist, as seen in his later actions during the War of the Kings, was shaped by his upbringing in Haran and his connection to the priestly and royal traditions of Nippur and Ur. But there's another intriguing parallel. As Abraham journeyed toward Canaan, a new power was rising in the shadows. In the land of the Hittites, an exiled deity, Marduk, began to emerge, stirring unrest and preparing for a clash that would echo across Mesopotamia. Marduk's reappearance in the region of Hattiland, modern-day Turkey, was no coincidence. It was part of a broader and deliberate plan to reclaim his dominance. According to ancient records preserved on cuneiform tablets, Marduk wandered the lands during his exile, recounting his years as a wanderer in a strikingly personal narrative. From the mountains to the east to the lands of Hatti in the west, he sought answers and bided his time, waiting for the moment when his power could be restored. For 24 years, Marduk nested in Hattiland, building alliances and preparing for his eventual return to Babylon. During this time, he formed unexpected alliances, including one with Adad, a fellow Anunnaki, in stark contrast to Abraham's swift movement southward toward Canaan. While Abraham carried out his divine mission to secure the Negev and other territories, Marduk worked behind the scenes to infiltrate and influence Mesopotamia from afar. According to some interpretations, there were the Anunnaki's spaceport. Marduk's strategy was both subtle and bold. From his place of exile, he dispatched emissaries to Babylon, sending resources and agents to rebuild his support base. At the same time, his son Nabu, operating from Borsippa, worked tirelessly to gather followers and spread Marduk's influence across Greater Canaan and other strategic regions. Nabu's movements in these lands paralleled Abraham's journey, setting the stage for an inevitable clash between the remnants of the house of Nannar and the rising house of Marduk. Abraham's journey southward was not a random pilgrimage. The Bible provides no explanation for the grueling trek through the arid Negev desert, but ancient accounts reveal the true purpose behind it. Abraham's mission was intricately tied to the Anunnaki's mission control center in Canaan and their spaceport in the Sinai Peninsula. Mount Moriah, the site where Abraham is later commanded to sacrifice his son, wasn't just a place of spiritual significance. It was part of the Anunnaki's celestial infrastructure, alongside Mount Zophim, known as Mount of Observers, and Mount Zion, known as the Mount of Signal. These mountains formed a network critical to the Anunnaki's operations, serving as key outposts for their activities on Earth. Abraham's movements were deliberate and strategic. After briefly pausing in Shechem, he built an altar at Beth El, a name meaning House of God, near Jerusalem. This location, alongside Mount Moriah, would later become the site of Solomon's Temple and the Ark of the Covenant, both remnants of the Anunnaki's enduring presence in the region. From Beth El, Abraham pushed further south into the Negev, reaching the Brook of Egypt, Wadi El Arish, and the oasis of Kadesh Barnea, marking the southern boundary of his domain. These locations were not chosen at random. They were critical to securing the Anunnaki's control over their ancient territories. Abraham's mission wasn't merely a spiritual endeavor, it was a military and diplomatic operation. Traveling with an elite group of fighters, Abraham's forces were uniquely suited to the harsh conditions of the Negev and the Sinai. The Bible refers to his men as Nannar, a term linked to cavalrymen, and ancient texts confirm the use of camel-riding warriors capable of traversing arid terrains where traditional horsemen could not survive. This innovative military corps was essential for safeguarding the Anunnaki's installations and protecting their interests from rival factions. Even Abraham's brief sojourn in Egypt hints at his elevated status. Upon arrival, he and Sarah were immediately brought to the pharaoh's palace, treatment that suggests they were far more significant than mere nomads. Abraham's presence in Egypt, at a time of political turmoil between the northern pharaohs and the Theban rulers in the south, suggests that he was involved in state affairs, possibly acting on behalf of the Anunnaki to maintain the delicate balance of power. Upon returning to the Negev, Abraham's resources and influence had grown significantly. Reinforcements from Egypt bolstered his position, enabling him to establish himself near Hebron, a location of immense strategic importance. From here, Abraham could survey the land promised to him by Yahweh, a promise that was, in reality, part of a larger Anunnaki directive to secure key territories in Canaan. It was during this time that a significant geopolitical conflict unfolded, as described in Genesis 14. An alliance led by Amraphel, king of Shinar, waged a military campaign against the rebellious Canaanite kings. While traditional interpretations of this event have struggled to align it with history, a deeper analysis reveals the truth. Amraphel was none other than Amar-Sin, a ruler of the third dynasty of Ur. Amar-Sin's reign, beginning in 2047 BCE, coincided perfectly with the timeline of Abraham's journey. His most significant military campaign, conducted in 2041 BCE, aligns with the biblical account of the 14th year of Kedorlaomer's dominion over the Canaanite kings. This synchronization between the Sumerian records and the Bible demonstrates that Abraham's actions were not isolated, but deeply intertwined with the power struggles of the ancient Near East. Abraham's return to the Valley of Shalem, or Jerusalem, marked a significant moment in his journey. He was greeted by Melchizedek, the priest-king of Shalem, who blessed him in the name of the God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. Despite the gratitude of the Canaanite kings and their offers of riches, Abraham refused to take any reward, declaring that his actions were dedicated solely to Yahweh, the God he served. This neutrality between the warring houses of Nannar and Marduk underscored Abraham's unique role as a figure guided by divine purpose, rather than personal ambition. Yet the threat to the spaceport did not end with the War of the Kings. In 2040 BCE, Mentuhotep II of Thebes expanded his territory to the borders of Sinai, further complicating the region's delicate balance of power. The following year, Amar-Sin launched a naval expedition toward the Sinai in an attempt to seize control of the spaceport, but his campaign ended in failure when he succumbed to a venomous bite. Although the spaceport remained secure, the growing ambitions of Marduk and his followers loomed large. There is clear evidence that 15 years later, everything resulted in a catastrophic nuclear explosion. This explosion is identified by experts as the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. It is said to have been the outcome of tensions between the clans of Enki and Enlil. Although the evidence sometimes becomes muddled and different Anunnaki figures can be interpreted in varying roles, such as determining who the parents and children are in a true genealogical tree, one thing is certain. The story told and retold to us over the centuries and millennia is a grand invention, a lie that has shaped our world to this day. The biblical narrative, stripped of its full context, obscures the truth. Our religions have a clear and unequivocal root, and it all traces back to them, the Anunnaki. The story of the Bible, then, is not a unique revelation. It is the retelling of a much older narrative, one written on the cuneiform tablets of Mesopotamia and shaped by the gods who walked among humans. The fingerprints of the Anunnaki are all over the origins of Abraham's journey. As we piece together the evidence from archaeology, mythology, and history, one thing becomes clear. The story you've been told is incomplete. And the truth? The truth is hidden in the sands of Sumer and in the most recent archaeological discoveries. These discoveries are far more extraordinary than anything a religious minister could ever tell us. If you are ready to explore these profound truths, watch this video and uncover who Jesus really is. Or choose one of the other videos to continue your journey in search of the truth. I'll see you in the next video.